Howdy. Well, thanks for coming out. I'm Gary. This is Carla. I'm excited to introduce Carla on your second ever stand-up performance, correct? Carla and I have known each other, I don't know, more than 20 years, something like that. And I wanted this to be billed as CA versus GA, but I didn't throw it out there. So I'm excited. I noticed Noah's not here, and I can only think that's going to run into the humor of the evening. So. Oh, well. All right. Well, anyway, give it up for Carla Anderton.
Good evening. Am I close enough to the mic? Yeah. Okay, good. Let me move this back just a little bit. My note cards here. I was a teacher until about 6 months ago, so I'm always prepared. I cannot promise that I will be funny, but I will try. So, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I don't know if any of the Sons are here, but I do want to thank the Sons of Italy for hosting us tonight. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity, I know some of you had, to visit the new-ish Peter J. Daly Cultural Center in Brownsville. So what about 2 blocks away from here? We initially planned to do this there, and then the response was, overwhelming for someone who was planning to do their first comedy show with no guarantee whatsoever of being funny. That's a disclaimer. But thank you to the Sons, thank you to Annette, and thank you to Gary, who has put up with endless messages back and forth about how we were going to pull this off. So, why am I doing a stand-up show? Because I am clearly not a seasoned stand-up comedian. Was a teacher until about 6 months ago, a little bit longer, and I'm a writer. And I've been involved with the NVAA since, well, it was right before the pandemic, which was a really interesting time to join an arts organization that was focused on putting out concerts for the public. But unlike many of the people on the board, I am not a musician. Although, if you know me, I have been involved with my fair share of them. So since we bought the building, Annette has been working tirelessly to schedule events, and we've had how many events now? Like
42 or something.
42, like she doesn't know that exact number, right? And so she's been asking me, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And she says, do you want to do a poetry reading? Because she knew that I had done those in the past. And I said, do I want to read sad emo poetry I wrote in my 20s about people who are now dead? No, thank you. No one wants that. So here we are. And I must warn you, it is only going to get darker from here. You were warned. I kept putting it on Facebook and you insisted on coming, so here we are. So as Gary mentioned, my name's Carla Anderton. My original last name was Curry. That's C-U-R-R-I-E, not like the spice. My stepdad adopted me when I was 9 years old, and the whole idea was so that everybody in the household would have the same last name. But until I was 9 years old, my initials were CC, and this led to my first existential crisis. It's a one word that I can't quite pronounce. It's like intimacy. So at the end of first grade, they gave me an IQ test. And I'm not trying to brag, but my score was really, really high, like off the charts high. Now I know that the integrity and the credibility of IQ tests have been questioned, and I am not, again, trying to brag. I'm really setting you up for many stories about me doing incredibly dumb things. But at one point in my life, they thought I was smart, and they decided that I needed to go to a special school, an optional school. And so I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I still have a bit of an accent. And so we moved to go to this school called Campus School. And Campus School was a lab school, kind of like the NOS school at Cal U, right? And there were two ways that you got into Campus School. You were smart, or you were a professor's kid. And, unlike traditional schools where you might have like one student teacher come in a year, we had student teachers that would just circulate throughout the year. Like every 6 weeks we'd get a new student teacher that was studying at then Memphis State University to become a teacher. And they put me in a special class, and it was called CLUE. And CLUE is an acronym for Creative Learning in a Unique Environment. Now, I know a lot of the people in this room, and I know we have some really smart people congregated here together, and you know that it's hard to be the smart kid. Try being told and having the other kids being repeatedly told that you were smarter than the smart kids. And they started to view me as this sort of like mutant super brain, and I was ostracized. Now, I know this is difficult to believe, but at one point in my life, I was very introverted and very shy. I know. But all of this being disliked and being picked on just led me, I was always a weird kid, to just sort of retreat more into my shell. And one day, I was in CLUE class, which is a class that they take you out of your regular class in front of the other students. So you go in another room. Ellie knows what I'm talking about, right? You know CLUE. And my CLUE teacher was a woman, her name was Sharon Rake, and she decided that she wanted us to do this brainstorming exercise. And so she announced that there was a creature that was living in the ceiling above our classroom. And she told us that the creature's initials were CC. And so she asked us to brainstorm what CC stood for. And this went on for weeks. And if you know anything about me, you know that one of the things that I kind of specialize in is Jack the Ripper. And I've always been, really fascinated by mysteries. And so I became obsessed with this creature that was living in the ceiling named CC. Meanwhile, I've got boys that are beating me up on the playground for being a nerd. Well, that's what they told me they were beating me up for. I have since figured out that that was probably not the case. And I really started to wonder if maybe I was the ceiling creature. And I started to have this, and there's probably 2 people that I know of in this room that are definitely going to get this reference, maybe more, but I started to have a bit of a Kafka-esque existential crisis. Anyway, that's where it all started, and here we are. I don't cook. I've never been particularly good at it. And I have rheumatoid arthritis, as most of you know, and when my hands went, I kind of became reliant on someone else to do all of the cooking for me. No one wants me to wield a knife, least of all me. So here's what I've learned about men, and I have done my research. They either over-season the food, or they don't season it at all. There is no in between. So I'm getting ready today, and I didn't write this one, this is off the cuff, this is a freebie. And my significant other, Noah, says, would you like me to make you some chicken noodle soup? I was like, what did I do to piss you off? I like lawyers, with the exception of divorce attorneys. We'll get to that in a bit. But there's a lady in Florida, and I absolutely cannot make this up, who is currently suing Hershey's for millions of dollars because Reese's pumpkins do not have actual faces on the candy. I'm not making this up. Millions of dollars. Because I guess on the packaging, it shows like it has little cutouts on the pumpkin, and it's not on the candy. And so they're saying that this is like false advertising. Some people have too much time on their hands. And if you have expectations about subpar holiday chocolate, well, I have got some really bad news for you about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, which once got me in a lot of trouble. And I want to say, because I think my cousins down in Florida, no relation to the lady that's suing Hershey's, my cousin gave me permission to do this next bit. Okay, we're all adults here. I can use a little bit of salty language. We're okay with that? Okay.
Salt it up.
All right. I am the asshole who told my baby cousin that there was no Santa Claus. It wasn't malicious. It was matter of fact. Like, a month later, she'd explained to me how sex worked. So I figured she was due. Her mother, our grandparents, got so mad at me. They acted like I had ended Misty's childhood. Again, I just thought she should know. Meanwhile, and this is the part that I had to get permission for, her mother is bringing home a slew of loser boyfriends for sleepovers every weekend with my baby cousin in the house. I have nothing against alcohol. I have consumed my fair share of it. I never saw this woman without beer in her hand. Meanwhile, I'm the bad influence.
Right. Yeah, right.
100% clear to tell that joke, by the way. So I was recently elected vice president of the MBAA, and I'm very, very proud of that and very eager to continue the work that we've been doing. And now Annette calls me twice as much as she used to, and that's okay. And in my role, I do a lot of promotions for the MBA, flyers and the website and the newsletter, and if you're here, you probably know that. And particularly Annette, she's always sending me like stuff on text, and so I'm constantly emailing myself things from my phone to go over to my computer so that I can pull them into, Photoshop or Canva or whatever it is that I'm using. And the reason that I do this is because my iCloud storage is full, and I don't know how to empty it. And I did my time in the tech support trenches, and I'm not asking for help. So sometimes I'll email myself something, and then I'll get a notification on my computer that I have a new email, and I get excited. Ooh, someone sent me a new email. Wonder who it's from. Sometimes I think that I should just box up my degrees and return them to Seton Hill and Cal U. Yes, I went to Cal U. I did not go to Penn West, California. And I don't care what you say, it's always going to be Cal U. Right. And since I'm not likely to ever go back to teaching, I feel like that I can say that in public now. I just kind of sat on that for a while, just in case they called, but they didn't. And now here I am, right? Speaking of Seton Hill, I taught freshman comp there for 5 years. A beautiful, beautiful campus. Lots of statues. I used to have to walk through the chapel to get to my class, and it was just so peaceful in the morning. And I'd walk past the statue of Jesus, say, "Good morning, Jesus," and "Good morning, Mary," and go into my class and, hope that, lightning wasn't about to strike because I'm not particularly religious. And my first semester of teaching at Seton Hill, I made a nun cry. They were tears of joy, okay? Don't look at me like I just drowned a sack of puppies in the Monongahela River. My student was from, I believe, South Korea. I'm almost positive it was South and not North. And she did not speak a lot of English. And so we didn't have any ESL classes at Seton Hill. And they just kind of threw them into your classroom and said, deal with it. And so there was this language barrier, and we had been going back and forth. She was a very conscientious student, but she didn't understand the directions. And then one day, I guess the light went off, and she completed her assignment. It was beautiful, it was well written, it was well researched, it was well done. And at the time I was still driving, and so I would take the shuttle with her down to the parking lot. And I'm sitting next to her on the shuttle, and she's like, how did I do? I said, oh, that was wonderful, that was great. And then she burst into tears. And everybody's looking at me like, what did you do? She's a full nun now, by the way. She was a novice at the time. So I didn't scare her off. During the pandemic, all of the professors at Seton Hill were required to complete what they called an online teaching boot camp. And this was one of the most painful experiences of my life. And I've had a lot of surgeries, so when I say that, know that I mean it. It was a total slog. It was all online, so that, that part was good. We were in the pandemic. But it was taught by people in the IT department who were not teachers. And I have nothing against people in the IT department, okay? But these people had not seen the inside of a college classroom since they were in college, and they were not good teachers. And it was painful and time-consuming and all this busy work, and I've never been one for busy work. And I remember thinking at one point, perhaps uncharitably, look, Deborah, no offense, Deb, I just did not aim at you, okay? Just needed a name. If I forget my email password, I will call you. Until then, I don't really need you to teach me how to do the job that I have done at varying stages of competency for the last 10 years. So in addition to teaching at Seton Hill, I also taught at a community college, Westmoreland County Community College. And I need to tell you a little bit about Noah so that you will understand the setup for this next one. Noah is a gun person. No, Noah is a gun nut. Okay? He has many, many, many guns. And I'm not a gun person, okay? I have come around on cars. I have come around, obviously, on football, right? Yeah. You're never going to get me on the guns. Night after night after night, explaining guns to me. Old guns, new guns. And when I was teaching at Westmoreland County, at the Fayette Center, actually, I had a young man in my class, and he was a young family man. He was very earnest and hardworking. And he mentioned in class, and I don't remember how this came up, by the way. You never knew what was going to happen in my classes. But he mentioned to me that he had an assault rifle. And without blinking, I said, do you have the 10 or the 15? And that is why he signed up for another class with me the following semester. Because you have to meet people where they are, right? So I worked for an attorney when I was in grad school. And it was a very good job for a single mother, flexible schedule, close to home. I'm not just saying that because she's here, and I sent her a fundraising letter. I am shameless. I will ask anyone for money for this cause because I truly believe in what we're doing at the NDAA. I'm serious. I'm serious. Where's Sue at? Look, Sue's in the back, right? You give Sue your email address and you will have a fundraising letter in your inbox by tomorrow night. Trust me. Speaking of attorneys, I have failed spectacularly at matrimony twice. Anything worth doing is worth doing well, right? So during my second divorce, which drug on for nearly 3 years, in which we had no children and no assets, and I had 2 attorneys. And the first one overbilled and underrepresented me. And so finally, after he drained me of what savings that I had, I fired him. Felt great. Really great. This guy, I swear, I mean, he would just think about my case, and the next day I would get a call from his assistant. You need to send, let's call him Jeff. No, all right. You need to send Jeff another $800. Okay. My second attorney was this really whip-smart, truly compassionate guy from Legal Aid. And he did it well. But he just kept getting gobsmacked by all this incredibly like bizarre stuff that my ex kept throwing out to keep the divorce from happening. Now I suppose that I should be flattered that someone was willing to go to such lengths to stay married to me. For the record, I was not. So we're going to call him Dave. Again, generic names. Dave did his best, but I never got my divorce finalized. I told you this was going to get dark, okay? As it turns out, you can only divorce the living. Yeah. So my late husband, and I hesitate to call him late because it sounds like I'm expecting him to show up. And that would be a real trip, right? He passed away on September 3rd, 2022. Yeah, no, 2021. This was a long, ongoing process, okay? On September 3rd, and we had a hearing in our divorce on November 16th, and he didn't show up. And they were going to hold him in contempt of court. I'm not kidding. I mean, even his lawyer is on the phone MFing this guy, okay? And so I go on Facebook, and the way that I dealt with this incredibly long and traumatic situation was I made a lot of jokes on Facebook, right? And if you're here, you probably know that, right? And so I go on Facebook and I said, hey, it's starting to look like I may be divorced in my lifetime. Because during the hearing, they're like, look, we're going to fast track this. We're going to hold him in contempt. If he doesn't show up, we're just going to grant you a divorce. And I'm like, okay, that's what I wanted, right? So about 2 months after I found out that I was a widow and had unsuccessfully attempted to get a copy of the dead dude's death certificate, I called Dave to ask him if he could help out. As it turns out, Dave had retired. And Dave said that he would refer me to his colleague. And then he said something to me in this world-weary tone, and I'll never forget it. He said, you were my last case. It was like, you seen the movie Titanic, right? Where the elderly Rose, it's been 80 years, right? That's what this guy sounded like. It's been nearly 3 years. And I felt so bad for Dave. 45 years of working in the legal system, helping out the people who could not afford a lawyer. And it was my divorce, or rather the lack thereof, that finally broke him. And I really hope that Dave is enjoying his retirement. Speaking of divorce, I just went through a sudden, very upsetting separation from my former NFL boyfriend, Kenny Pickett. Thank you. It was a rough few weeks. It involved a lot of ice cream. Because I recently attended my first NFL game, my first really professional sports game of any kind. And that was the game on December the 3rd, right? When we got our asses handed to us by the Cardinals, right? I say we, like I was on the field, but I was in the stadium, right? Yeah. And I feel like I might have ended Kenny's career by showing up at his game wearing his jersey. First he gets injured, and then the sky opens up. And we had to evacuate the stadium, not once, but twice. And God rained down his ironic justice for my having insisted that hell would freeze over before I would attend a professional football game. And then no one was with me, right? We go everywhere together. And we had come over on the Gateway Clipper. And if you were going to the Steelers game, that's the way to do it, is to take the Clipper over, right? But I understand it usually goes much better than it did for us. And Noah was like, after they evacuated the stadium the second time, maybe we should go in case they shut the Clipper down. and you're experiencing a weather-related emergency, and a man named Noah tells you to get on a boat, you get on the damn boat. Anyway, it was traumatic having to let Kenny go. He had so much promise. So easy to look at. But I'm pleased to say that Mason Rudolph and I are very happy together now. Here's the thing about Kenny, okay? I wished him well. I wished him a speedy recovery. I wanted to see him back out there on the field. But you can't expect to hold the affections of a former teacher when you say dumb shit about I didn't learn anything when I was sitting on the sidelines. You never say that to a teacher. I didn't learn anything. Kenny was so sad. Poor little millionaire. He said, "How could you leave me for my backup quarterback?" And I said, "Kenny, this is nothing. I ran away with the best man for my wedding. And my only regret was that I didn't do it sooner. Think of the money we could have saved." Let's get back to the Steelers for a minute. Remember a couple of weeks ago there was a rumor that Tomlin might take a year off? Now, I'm going to tell you, like I used to tell my students when politics would come up in the classroom, I am not telling you how to feel about Mike Tomlin, okay? And I realize that he can be a bit of a polarizing figure. But I love his press conferences. They're so straightforward and to the point, no nonsense. Now we know that Mike Tomlin is sticking around, but I have an idea for when he does retire. Hear me out. Mike Tomlin should be the White House press secretary. Now I'm not going to do an impression of Mike Tomlin because that would be problematic on a lot of levels. Chief of which is that I am not good at impressions. But imagine how he would address current issues with that sort of no-nonsense cadence of his. All right, settle down. We got a lot to cover today, so let's cut to the chase. First things first, climate change. This isn't a 2-minute drill, folks. This is a long game, one play at a time. Can't ignore the blitz coming from Mother Nature. Got to adjust our coverage. Economy, let's be honest, it's been a fumble recovery all season. Inflation's the strip sacker, interest rates are the blitzing linebackers. But here's the thing, we've faced tough opponents before. This isn't new territory. We got to focus on fundamentals, block out the noise, and obviously, execute. Now let's talk peace in the Middle East. Complex play, this one. No easy blitzes. Got to read the defense. Adjust on the fly. Diplomacy's the first down. Communication's the second. Got to break the huddle with open minds. Trust, respect, understanding. That's the Hail Mary we got to throw. That's all I got for today, folks. Remember, life's a long season. Got to stay focused, stay disciplined, and keep your eyes on the ultimate goal. Making this world a better place, one play at a time. Now get out there, run some adjustments, make some adjustments, and run the damn ball. So here's the part that you all came for. In July of 2019, I went to Memphis for the first time in a very long time, and I nearly died. I got pneumococcal pneumonia, and went septic. I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks. I ended up in a wheelchair for the better part of 6 months, which was a learning experience on a lot of levels. I went to class, and I went to spousal support court, and I really couldn't afford to go anywhere else. So we had a bit of a mini lockdown before the actual lockdown. So let's fast forward to March of 2020, and I've just joined the MBAA as the secretary, and I was getting back to what passes for me as normal. I could walk again, but I still couldn't drive. And so we're heading out the door one morning, to go to class. And I walk out on my porch, and there's a chicken.
Oh, God.
And if you've been following this saga, you know several things. Number one, and this is the most important part, I don't own chickens. And this chicken belonged to the neighbor. And that's the neighbor with the capital N. He had a dozen of these chickens. Well, the neighbor was, well, I would call him eccentric, but no, he was just weird. He was OCD about his grass. He would be mowing his grass 5-6 days a week. And so the chickens had, nowhere really to graze because he was tormenting his lawn to the point that there's no bugs left. And so the chickens would come over to our house, right? The other thing about the neighbor that you should know is that he rarely wore a shirt. So the chickens, they like to come visit. And then the pandemic hits and everything shuts down. And I'm teaching on Zoom and I have chickens squawking outside of my office window. And the neighbor, and we'll just call her Chicken Mom, they're constantly over in our yard chasing the chickens back to their yard, meanwhile scowling at us the whole time like we had somehow invited the chickens to our yard. Again, I do not own chickens. I do not wish to own chickens. So about this time, of course, everybody's locked down, can't go anywhere. This is, again, bizarre, but somehow my ankle bone became disconnected from my foot bone, so I had to go in and have foot surgery to reconnect it all. And so I'm stuck on the couch, teaching 8 classes on Zoom. Yeah, never, ever, ever again. One window to the outside world, and guess what I could see outside of that window? So I became just a little bit obsessed with the chickens. I gave them names. I made them Facebook famous. That's why you're here. And I genuinely was worried about their well-being. They would just let these chickens just roam everywhere. And we live on 481, which is a busy road. And these chickens, they would go up to the road, and I would sit there and I think, I wonder if they'll cross it. No, I really wonder that. But I was concerned about the chickens. They would get hit by, speedy vehicles. Meanwhile, this is very Hitchcockian, Rear Window-esque, me staring out this window, being nebby as shit. That's a Western Pennsylvania word, right? And I'm from the South, but I've been here long enough that I can say that, y'all. So one day, Chicken Mom shows up with 3 trucks and removes a large number of items from the house while the neighbor is at work. And when all the trucks were loaded, she goes down to the pen and she said goodbye to the chickens. Now, I don't know why she left the chickens. We may never know. It took a while, but eventually I guess the house was sold as part of their divorce. Not that I looked it up online or anything. I miss the chickens. I do. I don't want to own chickens. But sometimes I go to Rural King and I go look at like little baby chicks in the back. And they're so cute, right? Wholesome. I do not miss the neighbor. But the new people are weird too, so stay tuned. We've given them almost 2 years to be neighborly, and they just snub us. I don't know. I don't know what that guy said to them about us, but again, he was weird. So I want to end on a somber note. I know, because that was all so freaking cheerful, right? All right. A lot of you, in fact, everybody here, have encouraged me in my folly of attempting to do comedy. And thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. But there was someone who's sadly not here who was one of my biggest cheerleaders and who actually helped convince me that I might actually be funny. And that was Connie Ferris. And I know we all miss her so much. And she was such a special person. And she was always the first laugh react on my post. And she loved the chickens too. And so I want to dedicate this, my first ever official, because we're kind of thinking last night was a bit of a dress rehearsal show to Connie. Thank you very much. You've been wonderful. All right, come on, come help me off the stage.
Good job, Carla.